In the past, they haven't really been able to enable any change or enact any change or put forward any resolutions of note to affect the situation in Burma. Insofar as the international leadership, if you like, is concerned, the Biden administration in the U.S. has made sounds, I would say. They've made noise that seems to be in the right direction about have taken a strong stance about the possibility and the reality of using sanctions and imposing sanctions if required. And yes, you're right. Jacinda Ardern in New Zealand is probably the one leader amongst the kind of the big nations, and even then we're talking New Zealand is definitely not in the top tier 10 nations, if you like, in the G7s or the G12s either, who has come forward and said, look, we are cutting all military ties. Now, that again, it's a sound bite. I mean, what does that actually mean? Until and unless there's absolute cessation of trade with military-owned companies and military-backed business in Myanmar, as well as kind of these sanctions on travel bans and stuff like this. Until there's that from a wide-ranging source of countries, and I'm talking about the powerful countries, and especially the allies and local countries like China, India, Russia, for example, and other ASEAN countries, then I don't think that we're going to see that build-up of external pressure, which leads to internal change.
Exactly. And I think the most important and critical issue is the plight of the Rohingya within Myanmar at this point in time. Because we know when one looks at Suu Kyi, she was complicit as well, as far as the genocide that was committed against the Rohingya goes. And with all the spotlight, with all the focus on her by her supporters, with all these protests that are taking place. And we know that very little had actually come out even during her tenure as the leader of the country, where she spoke about, she refused, where she actually refused to acknowledge these genocides that were taking place against the Rohingya. The problem at the moment, Mabrur, is we don't know. We don't know what is happening out there. There has been news blackouts for far too long as far as the Rohingya in Myanmar goes. And now with the situation it says as it is, possibly the situation could be even worse.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a couple of things here. First of all, any conversation that we have with Burma must start, not stop, must start at least with the Rohingya, because whatever we're talking about politically going forward, we have to look at in the very past, very recent past record of this genocide that's been committed. We start with the Rohingya because there was a genocide committed amongst them, against them. But we don't stop with the Rohingya because there are other ethnic communities within Myanmar who have equally been mishandled and have had their rights and have taken away from them, have been marginalized. For example, the Kachin, the Karen, and the Shan, who have had crimes against humanity and war crimes. And to be honest with you, the difference between crimes against humanity and genocide is in intent to a degree, but not really against the kind of mass extermination of people and the mass displacement of people. The crime is equally as bad. So first of all, we must remember other people's struggle. We shouldn't be kind of single-minded in that approach, because what that does, and when I say we, I'm talking about Muslim world here, right? But of people generally beyond that as well, because once we become single-minded, what it does is we have to bring allies with us. We have to bring similar lived experiences to the table with us. We have to champion all of those voices, not just a voice which is part of our agenda or part of our sphere of interest. We have to look at the entirety of it. So that's the first thing I would say. The second thing I would say outside of that is absolutely there's been a news blackout, but we have sources within Rakhine State, Arakan State. We do actually know what's happening with the Rohingya community. One thing is, we know that since the coup's taken place, there have actually been a battalion of military leaders who have gone and visited the Rohingya in the Sitwe camps, in the IDP camps in Rakhine State. And they all, to all extents and purposes, bribed the Rohingya leaders and said, look, the reason why we did this was to kind of restore democracy to its norms that we've understood it by. And at the same time, so long as you guys, follow the local laws and rules and regulations, now that the military is in control, we will try to make sure that your situation is resolved. And in exchange for that kind of vow, they offered about $400 in alms, if you like, to the local masajid and to the local people, and gave some of the Rohingya people some food as a donation as well. Now, we've seen this tactic before as well, where the military appears to be the concerned father. Where the military also plays a different role, a schizophrenic role, where the military plays this strict father and then an angry and a violent father, but still always using the term father. And of course, the Rohingya people, without the military, do not have any safety, and with the military face a genocide. So they are damned if they do, and they're damned if they don't. They can't really protest against the military because whoever remains there will get exterminated, and they can't 100% agree with the military because that same military has been responsible for the deaths and maiming of many hundreds and thousands of Rohingya over the years. So it's a very difficult situation that's going on there. Inside Suu Kyi's party, inside Burma, I think there is probably now the green shoots of hope that actually the younger generation that are coming to the streets now in the mass protests that we're seeing, they recognize and they now acknowledge that there were past mistakes made with the Rohingya people and other ethnic people, and actually are starting to use the term Rohingya, are actually opening their arms and standing arm to arm with Rohingya brothers and sisters in protest as well. But it's just green shoots of hope, and we have to be cautious about this, that what doesn't happen as happened in 2012 is that the Rohingya and other ethnics are brought together to the table, a party comes into power, civilian government, and then all hopes of ethnic reconciliation are wiped away as well. That's happened in the past as well. So we've got to make sure that doesn't happen going forward.
Well, caught between a rock and a hard place at this point in time, but very, very interesting in terms of what you just said towards the end, Mabrur. And as always, Jazakallah, we thank you for your time with us here on Salam Media. We wish you well and all the best to you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam.
Mabrur Ahmed joining us out of the United Kingdom this morning, talking about the Myanmar coup.
They say breakfast is the most important meal of the day, yet many children go to school hungry because of poverty. Penny Appeal's Breakfast Club aim to get a warm, hearty meal to underprivileged children so they can spend the day prospering in their schoolwork. Help feed a needy learner by visiting our website on www.pennyappeal.org.za or call 031 1100 573 to find out how you can donate. Penny Appeal. Small change, big difference.
What makes